Welcome to the Wakefield Doctrine, the theory of Clark, Scott, and Rogers. This is a video post. It is the long-promised Scotian Dr. Ed and the Clark. And astute viewers will notice the old-school camera angle. And frankly, it's not that I'm backsliding, it's simply my arm is exhausted. And the reason my arm is exhausted is that this is like take 11. This has been it was at first not surprising, then difficult, then aggravating, and then annoying, and now it's getting interesting. And how many times I've attempted to do this videotape. I should hold forth. I think I will. Reasons why this particular video post has been so difficult to do. At first it was the daunting and intimidating challenge in presenting a story that I'll be telling in a way that is interesting, funny, charming, and slightly outrageous. And at the same time, all of which is to be accepted by the viewers as a very positive experience. And geez, I just wasn't up to it. But we're making a try. This is going to be it. Number 11, lucky 11. So the Scotian Dr. Ed and the Clark. And by the way, you get a nice scenery while we tell the story. Had a cold last week. Went to a walk-in clinic. Sat there for 2 or 3 hours. Actually 2 hours. The waiting room. I was taken to a holding room. Waited there another 30 minutes, finally taken to the final examination room for 5 minutes. I sat there and the knock came on the door as the door opened. I immediately took note of that and I smiled to myself. I thought, this is going to be fun. I said to myself, where all fun begins. And in walked my physician's assistant. I immediately recognized her as a Scotian female physician's assistant. And I did that by simply looking at her face and seeing her eyes. We say around the doctrine it's the gaze. We refer to it as the gaze of the Scot, male or female. They simply have a look about their eyes that is unmistakable. I looked at the rest of her as she came into the room, and then I knew I was going to have an interesting time, and 2, I was going to get a post out of it one way or another. I thought to myself, you're very well dressed for a physician's assistant whose primary practice is on the beach in the South Seas. And that's a real, none of these jokes are working out, by the way. This is like number 13 joke attempt to describe her having excellent cleavage. And she did. And the various attempts I've made to convey that. But that was the case. This is all about cleavage. It's always all about cleavage. So I sat through the examination, and she did her thing, and I did my thing, as is appropriate. And out of all of that, I have to say that my one persistent joke is the good thing about cleavage is that I knew that she would have to listen to my lungs, and I had no fear that the stethoscope would be ice cold. Anyway, having told the story a few times to regular people in the real world and all these takes, some interesting reflections on it. And my first concern was, wait a minute, I've got some Scotian female friends out there, and geez, they're going to think I'm making fun or being judgmental. And I heard that response from some people that I work with who know about the doctrine. I told the story, and one of them did react that way, saying, "Oh, that's not the way to dress," and this, that, and the other thing. And as with most things doctrine related, her reaction was useful to me. I learned something. And what I learned was my increased appreciation for the Wakefield Doctrine, because the Wakefield Doctrine at its heart is meant to short-circuit that normal and natural human reaction to other people. Meaning, okay, I'll judge how she dresses, And the basis for my judgment is my own opinion and experiences and all the other valid reasons that people give for judging other people. The Wakefield Doctrine, I know it's a lofty ambition, maintains that no, you can't do that. With the doctrine, you can't judge on the basis of your worldview. You have to judge, if you're going to judge, which we don't recommend, on the basis of the other person's worldview. So you look at my physician's assistant along with me and say, okay, there's a Scot because of the eyes, there's a Scot because of the aggressive fashion statement, there's a Scot for the certainty that she presents herself and the focus that she demands of me and I suppose everybody else, and say that's a Scot. And then you reverse it if you want to, and everything makes sense. So that's what I got out of the Scotian physician's assistant and the clerk. I got another lesson out of it, which was really actually kind of technically interesting. We have this rule about the doctrine, or in the use of the doctrine, is that everyone does everything at one time or another, and that's simply meant to convey that it's not like there's a thing that only Scots do, or this is a Rogerian thing. You take whatever it is and apply it in the context of the individual worldviews. So at the end of my little examination, I raised a certain question that required an explanation from her. The question was one of antibiotics. I'll give you 2 examples of that real quick. I said to her, hey, I agree with you that too much antibiotics tends to generate super germs. But my question to her was, does that apply to individuals, in a specific case? I said, if I, would it apply to me if I took them? And without hesitation, Scotian characteristic, she said, yes, if you killed off all the germs in your body, they'd be replaced by super germs. And at that moment, I raised my gaze and laughed to myself and said, I didn't say anything out loud. I laughed because I thought, that's a Scotian way of expressing that. A quick other example, Glenn, friend of the doctrine, once told a story about being in a doctor's office with an actual physician, and they were talking about antacids, and to illustrate his point, the doctor pulled out 2 different kinds of antacids, said, hey Glenn, here, take this pill, here, try to crush it in your fingers. Real hard, isn't it? Here, take this one. And it was a softer tablet. So see, that's the better one. Scotian response. All of this is meant to say 2 things here. In each worldview, things we use the term manifest. In a Scotian worldview, the idea of illustration or an explanation manifests a certain way. In a Clark or a Rogers worldview, same thing. Different, but it manifests a certain way. That's why we say everyone does everything at one time or another. And in the Scotian worldview, explanation is usually very brief, and the content is not critical. The words are not critical. The information isn't critical. The effect is. It doesn't. Scots are not. It's not that Scots don't care about information or can't give information or anything like that, but that is not the important part. The important part to a Scot, now we're talking the doctrine, and you got to know how we mean all of this. If you don't, then write me a comment and ask, or join our video chat. A Scot is concerned with the effect on the other person, because the other person is either prey, another member of the pack, or a dominant form. A Clark is concerned with, and therefore for Clark, demonstrations manifest as information is everything. In a Roger, they manifest demonstration, illustration in terms of referential authority. If I was asked that question, I would still be talking about all of the inferences and implications and interesting facts, both real, imagined, historical, contemporary, and future information, all as a part of how I will explain and illustrate this point. And the Roger would be talking about the studies, the experts, the sources and authority that is the source of his information, because for Roger, they deal in terms of the herd and credibility of information. That's how the same thing manifests 3 different ways. So that's the story of the Scotian PA and the Clark. And God, I hope this actually lasts well enough to make it onto the post so I can be done with it. Questions and comments, write us a comment. Thank you. Oh, we'll see you on the vid chats. We'll have a video chat tomorrow night, Friday, usual time. Possibly Sunday if you guys are up for it. Bye.